Culture is a set of shared values, beliefs. It encompasses language, religion, the arts, and music, and many more that allow these intergenerational practices to be transmitted. How is it transmitted? It's transmitted through four main mechanisms. Language, a primary vehicle for transmitting culture. It conveys knowledge and values through storytelling, education, and conversation. Rituals and traditions. They are repeated practices that reinforce cultural norms and values. What are some examples of this? Things such as religious festivals, ceremonies, and family events. Lastly, media and technology. These tools accelerate cultural transmission. Things such as social media, films, and books have a profound impact on today's generation and the generations in the past. Why is culture important? Culture is important because it shapes identity and our behavior. It provides a sense of belonging, continuity, and community, and allows individuals to connect with their past and their family's past. Vertical versus horizontal transmission. Vertical transmission. Culture passed down from one generation to the next. Examples: parents teaching children about their religion, and grandparents passing down objects and music to their grandchildren, family traditions like holidays and celebrations. Passing the torch, moving through generations. What does moving through generations really mean, and what is intergenerational culture? Intergenerational culture refers to passing down the practices, the knowledge, and the language, culture, and more of past generations down to the next. This process ensures the continuity of the culture and allows for knowledge to not be lost and to be built upon and understood deeper for the next generation. What enhances these intergenerational culture transfers? Well, transmission belts. Transmission belts are mechanisms that allow culture to more easily be transmitted to the next generation. These include things such as parenting styles, your family circle, your social circle, your educational practices, and community rituals. Key factors in transmission belts. Parenting styles. Empathetic and authoritative styles of parenting tend to transmit culture better than other styles of parenting do. Family interaction. Quality time and frequent interaction with family often enhance the amount of culture that is transmitted to a child. Educational systems. Schools and educational institutions play a very crucial role in instilling cultural values into our children. Parents' investments. How can parents further invest in their children and try and transmit their beloved culture to their children? Parents investing time, resources, and educational practices into their children often instill a strong cultural presence for their children. Types of investments include educational investments, economic investments, social investments that allow a child to experience more of what you presume your culture is and allow this to be transmitted to them. This builds a support bank where children can later draw on these experiences when they are an adult and try and also continue the culture that you put into them by using this bank to transmit culture through the memories that they had when they were kids. Imitation. Imitation is a fundamental skill that each child displays. A child mimics their parents and their grandparents, and this is a primary mechanism in how culture is transmitted to them. From a young age, children are keen observers and often copy and say the things that our elders say and do. Language acquisition.
孩子通过模仿父母的言语和体会来学习说话。
Rituals and traditions. Children often adopt these rituals and traditions by participating in them with their family in the past. Now that we've discussed the historical side of cultural studies,
Chain with context.
the first is looking at it through an eco-cultural perspective. The ecological framework emphasizes the role that ecology and the environment where you grew up has to do in how culture was transmitted to you and what was transmitted to you. The importance of this is that different environments require different strategies to live and adapt, and this may create different rituals and practices that may not be present in any other type of situation or environment that a person may be in. The next context is migrant families. Migrant families face a large challenge of trying to maintain their cultural identity while moving to a new country with its own separate culture. Families may adopt different styles of integration, such as assimilation. They may be marginalized. They might try and integrate, or they might even separate. And these all have different effects on how their culture is transmitted to their generation and the next. The next context, child developmental stages. The social developmental stage of a child. From infancy, norms and social values are instilled in children through daily interactions with their parents and grandparents and siblings and friends. And as children grow older, these peer groups and these family friends start to have a larger and more influential impact on who they become. This, along with the cognitive development of a child, is very important in transmitting culture. There are very key, crucial moments in a child's life where culture is more easily absorbed, and these values can be ingrained in them more easily than would have normally before. Finally, evolving contexts where we face things such as mass globalization and urbanization of different places. Societal changes such as all these technological advancements reshape how culture is transmitted, and things such as globalization and urbanization of spaces introduces a new form of cultural transmission that was never present in the past. Cultures must adapt to the current times to remain influential in a child's life and be ingrained in who they are. This requires for cultures to somewhat change and adapt to our social setting today. Investing in the future. Types of capital and migration. I'm going to talk about the 4 types of capital. The first being social capital. Social capital is the networks and the norms and the people that you know, and how this all comes together and creates its own currency and makes people feel more included in their society. This includes community involvement, social relationships, personal relationships that may influence a whole society and create more capital for the whole society to be useful for. Cultural capital. These are non-financial assets that allow for social mobility beyond just the means of using money. These are things such as education, intellect, rituals, and traditions. Next is moral capital. These are social norms and values that create obligations within a family and society. Moral capital encourages altruistic behavior and supporting the people within your family and the people that helped you out, and ensures the longevity of that family or culture. An example of this is children helping their parents out, and that moral capital was built upon when the parents cared for their children and taught them the things they know, and the child feels a sense of moral obligation to help out their parents in times of need. Now that we've talked about how important family connections are and being a dependable parent is to transmitting culture, how do we reduce some of these familial risks? Using support networks such as other family and you being yourself a family member with strong ties and emotions to that person that may feel excluded, and try and include them in your own space and culture and your thoughts of the ways of life. So strong family ties can mitigate the feeling of isolation and allow people to feel more included. This is essentially investing in a relationship and building something inside or outside of familial relationships that is long-lasting and makes people feel included and allows for people to feel something that they have to rely on. When we try and value and preserve the cultural practices and rituals of all the cultures, we essentially create a more enriched human experience because our children will be able to live a more diverse life and experience ways of life that we may have never been able to see through diversity.